Hi there, it's Sharon Waxman. I'm the editor-in-chief of TheWrap, coming to you from our studio at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I'm delighted to welcome the director and the principal of a new documentary that's airing in the festival. It's called The Last Republican. And welcome Adam
Thank
Kinzinger,
you.
who is the last
That's
Republican,
right.
and
Good to be
Steve
with you.
Pink, the director. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Adam, I feel like we see you all the time, and it's great to have the opportunity to hear your full story because you're kind of the go-to Republican on cable news, not Fox, a lot of the time, as one of a very small number of people who opposed Trump's, bid to hold on to power after the 2020 election, and you served on the January 6th committee. First of all, let's just start with so Steve, you say throughout the film that you're a dyed-in-the-wool progressive. Adam is kind of politically lost at the moment, right? I do believe history will vindicate you.
Thank you.
And I know you believe that too. But what motivated you to do a political documentary to start with, and why him?
Well, I mean, I'm a comedy director, right? So my whole life has been like subversion of expectation, um, and surprise. And Adam was probably, engaged in the greatest subversion of expectation in American politics I've ever seen, right? Like it's an amazingly courageous thing that he did, even though I don't agree with anything, politically. Um, that anyone could do. You sacrifice your career, your social circle. You put your family at risk because of the death threats that came in, and I thought that was absolutely a story to tell, especially in this moment, this crisis moment in America. Like he stood up in that moment and said, "Let's stop it."
What was yes, but it is kind of a swerve from your career. So I'm just curious,
Is it?
was
I
uh,
mean, I've been, it's not the first time I've been,
Hot Tub
called
Time
upon
Machine?
to
I don't
save
know.
America. Yes. I mean, Hot Tub Time Machine answers some of the very basic, fundamental questions about civilization, I'd say. So I
Uh-huh.
thought it was a
I,
continuation of my oeuvre.
was there a moment that you saw a news beat, an interview he gave where you said, "I want to try to get to know that guy"?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, he's from my home state, actually. So that was one of the first things.
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Hmm.
For some, I, I, I feel like I have Midwestern values. I have a Midwestern point of view. You could dig into what I think that is, but I projected it onto Adam as well. I was like, oh, I think I know this guy weirdly. Like, this is a guy that I could have seen anywhere in my neighborhood. So that was actually the first thing, you know, because if I don't know, maybe if he'd been from another state, I would have been like, I don't relate with that person, even on a kind of cultural level. So I really felt like I related to him in that way. And that, that was actually the first spark. I was like surprised he was from Illinois, and I was like, okay, here's a guy I don't agree with politically, but he's done this courageous thing. I want to know about it.
And when this guy called you up, you thought,
I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, look at him, but no, look, we've been approached by my wife and I had been approached by 20 or 30 people that wanted to do a documentary.
"Wow, that's a
Yeah,
lot of people."
it's a lot. And it was like, but it was always focused on this idea of, are you going to run again? And we want to follow the race, the campaign. And I got to be honest with you, I'm so tired of the horse race of politics anyway, and was even then. And it's like, and I knew that I probably wasn't going to run again. I had been in Congress for 12 years. Obviously, I'm sitting here betraying my party proudly, but I'm betraying my party. And they came along. Steve's like, "Hey, I wanna do." It was a story, but it wasn't the horse race of politics. It was more the interest in, what is the cost of doing what you're doing? What's the human toll? What's the human cost? And that's what I think is always missing in politics is the reality that we're all actually people. We all have families. We all, wear our pajamas late on Saturday, that kind of thing. And I wanted that story to come out about the human toll of doing the right thing. And that's what Steve was talking about doing. And I thought it worked out well. And as time went on, I found out he directed Hot Tub Time Machine. Truly, it's one of my favorite comedies. And the guys in the squad are in the military with me. We quote it all the time. But yeah, I mean, so we just decided like let's do it. We put a lot of trust in them, and we were nervous about it, and it turned out all right.
I just have to add though, because you said it. Here's my comedy punch up revision. They betrayed you.
Yeah.
You said you betrayed the party, and you often say that, but I almost feel like that's a projection they put on you. You upheld your oath. So I'm defending you, absolutely. Like you upheld your oath. I think it's actually your job description. Like if you were a grocery clerk, it'd be like stock shelves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, and so as far as I was concerned, they betrayed you.
Yeah.
So I don't think you betrayed your party at all. I think that anyone of those got out there who, any of those Republicans who are whatever, I hate to go on a crazy rant, but who support Trump and aren't upholding their oath, they're not doing their job.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry, I couldn't help
so
it.
No, that's true.
all right, I have way too many questions. Let me just start by saying that it's interesting what you just said about, you know, what drives politicians and what's your job. Because I always say when people ask me why people don't do the right thing, my stock answer is people are cowards and
Yeah.
just look at Congress.
Mhm.
So that's always like, well, how come so and so didn't do such and such at this moment in time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? People who are actually supposed to be the cream of our society over and over show how cowardly they are.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it is truly it's unique and it's unusual, not just that you would follow your conscience, but that you would speak out so stridently over and over and over, and you're drawing fire all the time. So I'm just saying what you know, but I still think it's so unusual that it's worth calling it out. So let's two questions, one after the other. One is, let's just start with what has happened to your life since you decided to oppose Trump. You got primaried. You're out of power, right?
Yeah, I didn't get primaried. I basically made the
Okay.
decision at that point. Like, I'm
Oh, okay.
done. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I had been in Congress for 12 years. I have a great friend who once told me, like, you can do anything really well for 10 years, and then you have to either refine your passion or move on to something else. And so 12 years was a long time, but the last 2 years of that, I mean, was very brutal, obviously. The January 6th committee, going through this and having, you talk about, courage, having my friends who I thought that they all had a red line they couldn't cross. I mean, my baseline assumption is, yeah, politicians do political things, but ultimately there's a line they'll just not go over. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, insurrection against your country is a pretty big line. And to watch them all just basically swallow it and go over that, I'm like, what in the world's happening? And I felt like, and I'm not saying this like to sound like, Atlas or anything, but I felt like I was kind of carrying this legacy of truth on my shoulders that nobody else besides maybe Liz Cheney was willing to defend on the Republican side. And so, look, life actually took a time, and we talk about it in the movie, where I got scarred, kind of beat down, and it was only after my time in Congress where I was able to really recognize the impact that it took. Because in the middle of it, it's like fighting a war. You're just moving to the next checkpoint. You're just doing what you got to do. And I realized that. So I've spent some time kind of, I guess, taking inventory of the impact it's had, but it's really actually reaffirmed to me. So I have a kid that's 2.5 years old, and I know that someday I'm going to be able to talk to him about doing the right thing, and he's going to Google my name and see, did Dad do the right thing, and I will have. And that to me is worth more than really anything.
Okay, but what are you doing? What are your plans?
Yeah, I mean, look, right now I'm doing a lot of speaking, and I'm, obviously on CNN. In terms of a future in politics, we'll see. I guess most people are used to politicians that have a grand plan. I've come to learn whatever your plans are, it never happens anyway. And so I'm spending some time to try to, I don't know, get that fire back in my belly for this, and it's starting to get rekindled. So maybe I run again someday. Maybe I just help people get into politics. But that's
Well,
where I'm
what
at.
are the options? And there's so few people who can actually talk about this on the record in public. We are here 3 months out, not even before the election. New poll, Harris and Trump are now neck and neck. Amazingly.
Yeah.
Imagine if Biden were still in the race, it would
Wouldn't even be close.
It wouldn't be close, would
Yeah.
it? I can't see.
I
Also,
know.
quite hard to
That's-
believe.
That's very disappointing.
I don't think it is close.
You think Harris is going to win?
I think she's going to run away with it. But that's
Yeah.
I'm blue team.
I hope you're right.
Well, I mean, I think any thinking person has to be skeptical of all the polls at this
Mhm,
point. I
mhm.
mean, I remember so many years ago, it must have been this 2015. Nancy Pelosi appeared at a women's leadership thing that we did. We were a month out from the election, and she was absolutely definitive, as was everybody else. Hillary Clinton is going to
Yeah.
be the next president. Our next president is going to be Hillary Clinton. It was all this whole thing she does about owning your power and sitting in your power. And, Nancy Pelosi is unbelievable.
Yeah,
And,
she is.
she is an
Mhm.
icon and a legend, but she was speaking very confidently and dead wrong,
Yeah.
right? And we all saw the polls. Like, I took screenshots of those polls because I was like, on the night of the election, I'm like, we need to remember
Yep.
how wrong people were. So
Yep.
I take your point. But okay, so let's say Harris does win, and this will be, I don't know, 3 elections now, that cycles that Trump will have driven the Republican Party into the ditch.
Mhm.
Could this be, do you see this potentially as the moment where the Republican Party can pivot away from him and be reborn, and then there is room for you in that party?
So, is there room for me in the party ever again? I don't know, because nobody will ever come to terms with the fact that they were wrong. I mean, this is kind of like a thing of the human. This is the human the human condition, I guess, is you may move away from Donald Trump as a party, but you will never admit that you were wrong to follow him, right? So the fact that I was out there calling him out, is there ever a welcome place for me in the GOP again? I don't know. Honestly, I don't really care, because in my mind, I am no longer wed to the idea of being a Republican. I just believe what I believe, and I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about. We'll see where I fit into that. But I do think if Kamala wins this election, this could be the beginning of the end of Trumpism. Now, it's also possible somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy pops up and basically harvests the legend of Donald Trump and becomes the next Donald Trump. But I also think there's going to be people sitting around going, "We are kind of sick of losing." Donald Trump promised
Right.
us you'd get
Winning,
tired
winning,
of winning,
winning.
and we haven't won. I mean, he never has won an election. I mean, technically, he won in 16 because of the Electoral College, but he lost the popular vote. And so I still think it's, no matter what happens in November, it's probably going to be a 5, maybe even 10-year process for all of this to burn out of the GOP and it to become a normal, sane party that, frankly, is necessary in this country. You have to have 2 sane parties.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think probably as a journalist, I'm an independent,
Mm-hmm.
but I like to think I'm sane also.
Yeah,
And the choice between sanity and insanity is not that.
it's no choice at all.
It's no choice. It's
Yeah.
really no choice at all. It's almost like if there were anybody else running that other than Trump, it would probably go.
Can I just say, this is how insane the Republican Party is? They had an opportunity to put Nikki Haley in there. Anybody else but Nikki Haley, she probably would have won. And she would have won for 8 years. Like, I could see that it would be hard to defeat her. Instead, they went with Donald Trump, who probably isn't going to win and can only do 4 years if he does. Like, it's just, that goes to show just a deep cultism that exists in the party.
It's so interesting. I think in time, over in the future, we will look back and study this period like a study in human behavior
Yeah.
at the highest level.
Yep.
So, I mean, we should expect our politicians to act better, and of course, they never do, and better than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And the
Demand better. Just demand better.
and I
of
think
your
that's
people.
also why people have tuned out of politics, frankly, because I also have tuned out of politics. I mean, I watch it out of the corner of my eye, but my expectations are so damn low.
Mhm.
And for so many of us, our expectations are low. So if you did nothing else, you at least raised our expectations
Good.
that we can expect better out of our elected leaders.
Yeah, you should demand better of your elected leaders. Each 700 in a House district, you represent 700,000 people. Find the best of that 700,000, right? Honestly, maybe I'm just saying this out now. Don't like obsess about how they're going to vote. I know that's important. Obsess about their character. The character is what matters, and that's where I think what Steve's movie does is it goes to show that there is character differences that takes an impact, but those are the kinds of people, seen behind the scenes, the folks that are willing, look, if you're unwilling to take the heat, there's so many other jobs out there you can do, right? If you just want to be known, like there's other things you can do besides go into government to be known. And, we've got to demand better of our people.
I hope there is a place that you find a path back into government, because those are the kinds of people, you're the kind of person that we need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I'll
Thanks
see
for coming.
about getting a formal invitation from
That's
from our illustrious party. Although he's actually closer to the power.
Yeah, I'll
inside the
get you. I'll
DNC
get you
than
to
me.
the inauguration.
Yeah, I was
don't
gonna say,
worry.
wait a minute, what am I saying? Can you get me an invite? I would love it.
That would be cool. Thanks, you guys.
Of course,
Adam
it was
Kinzinger,
great.
thanks for coming.
Thank
Steve
you so
Pink,
much.